Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Am's Untitled Podcast. I'm Am, and if you haven't met me before, it's very nice to meet you. I recently started a podcast for the pure reason that it's something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, but it's taken a lot of trying to persuade myself to be able to do this. The last episode that I recorded was actually in a hotel room in London because I didn't want to kind of fall out of routine of uploading every week, well, more or less every week. Like I said, I'm back, and in today's episode, I'm going to be reviewing the fifth episode of the Percy Jackson series, which is now streaming on Netflix. Netflix? No, it's not on Netflix. It's on Disney Plus. God knows where Netflix just came from. And as if you don't know, I'm a huge Percy Jackson fan. I've been a fan of the book since I was, oh God, really young. It was one of the books that I first picked up in the library, and I never got to read the whole set until I got a little bit older. And I've recently reread them. By recently, I meant I read them back in March. And for this podcast, I'm going to go through all the books again, up to Chalice of the Gods. I've also pre-ordered my copy of The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, but that doesn't release till September. So hopefully, if I'm still doing this in September time, I will read that and basically review that and my thoughts on it. But yeah, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the fifth episode of the Percy Jackson show. So I've got 3 episodes till the end. I have, in case you didn't know, I have already seen it. I've seen it this is my third time watching it. I'm redoing. I had to rewatch it to take the notes for this, obviously, because I can't remember it very well off by heart. But yeah, this is one episode, and as I was rewatching it to take the notes, is like probably my favorite episode. Maybe this one and the last one is probably going to be my favorite. But the reason why I love, excuse me, this episode so much is because I'm a huge Percabeth shipper. And this is one thing when I first found out they were doing the show that I was really, really excited about because I wanted to see what they were going to do. And yeah, obviously, as per usual, the show exceeded all expectations, you could say. And yeah, I just thought I would talk through it, a few things that I noticed, some of my favorite bits of the episode, maybe some slight changes that I noticed from the book. Like I said, it's been a while since I've reread the first book, so I'm basically just going off what I can remember. So you'll have to let it go if there's any mistakes in there, which I've tried my best to try and remember them. I've also finished the Heroes of Olympus series. I finished Blood of Olympus 2 days ago, but I didn't want to reread The Lightning Thief until I've finished doing these episodes because obviously I don't want to confuse myself and I want the episode that I'm going to do, which will be on 6 now. So my 10th episode will be the actual book, The Lightning Thief, and just basically my thoughts and feelings on that. Maybe a bit about the show, but I do genuinely want it to be more about the book because obviously I've done separate episodes for each episode of the show. So yeah, let's get started. I've already been rambling for nearly 4 minutes, so let's just go. Let's get on with this. Okay, so the episode opens up with the shot of the St. Louis Arch on fire and a helicopter, and Percy just sort of coming up from for air. It's actually a really really nice shot. Actually, it's beautifully shot, that scene. And then it cuts to Annabeth and Grover, and Annabeth sees in the distance 3 old ladies sitting with a ball of yarn that eventually cut a piece of the yarn. So I already know, like, immediately that was a hint towards the 3 women being the Fates. Now, if you don't know who the Fates are, they're basically in Greek mythology. Um, they basically weave the life strand of every living thing. So when you see a string cut, it basically means somebody's going to die. And I think that's a nice, like, little hint way to start the episode off because obviously, um, I think it was a nice start for many reasons because it's just like it's kind of has you on the edge already from the beginning of the episode, which I like. Like I like when I watch a show, I like being on my toes. I like wanting to know what's happened next. If things are going hunky dory from the beginning, that worries me a little bit because I'm just like, maybe this doesn't work for me. Anyway, so Annabeth is looking at them, and there's the juxtaposition of Grover, who's just looking at the police and the emergency services that are staring at both him and Annabeth. And they basically have a sort of conversation, and Grover is convinced that something has happened to Percy, like he's not alive. But Annabeth says to him that, look, I know that he's alive. Like I just feel it in my heart that he's alive. Sorry, minor interruption there. That was just my dad. It's fine. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about in this episode. Yeah, so she basically says to Grover, look, he's alive. Let's go and find him. And eventually they find him, and Percy comes out from the water. And the first thing he does is apologize to her for shoving her in the stairwell. And Annabeth, I just love this about her, is sometimes she can't control her emotions around him, which I really like. And she literally just wraps her arms around him and gives him like the tightest hug. And it's honestly so sweet. And poor Percy's just like, he's really confused. Like, he's taken aback. He's like, he was just trying to apologize that, he really didn't see that coming. And what I really love is that Grover is just standing there so awkwardly. And I think the reason why I was watching his facial expressions in particular, and just, I think it just confirmed to him his suspicion that she does actually really care about him. Because satyrs actually can sense people's emotions, I think he could feel like that, like sense of relief that Annabeth was feeling to see him alive. And actually, that scene's a bit different in the book because in the book, it's actually Grover that hugs Percy, not Annabeth. And I'm so happy that they've changed that this time round because obviously this season is about setting up the dynamics for future seasons. And obviously, the Percy and Annabeth relationship is arguably one of the most important relationships in the entire season. And I'm so happy that they changed that scene because, you know, it's like I don't know how to explain. Maybe just because I'm a Percabeth shipper, maybe that's why I got really excited when I saw it. But I feel like it shows a really nice development in Annabeth's character. She does have this tough exterior, and Percy is able to bring this almost, I don't know what you'd call it, like she's got a soft spot for him, basically. And as much as she hates to admit it, like she does really care. And it was so nice to just watch that scene. Yeah, it was a really good hug. I wish they showed like a shot of Percy hugging her back. We only ever see like Annabeth like cuddling him, but I would really like to see. But in the behind the scenes photos, he's hugging her back, so that makes me really happy. But I wish they just included even just like a tiny shot of him hugging her back. Anyway, so after that sort of happens, Percy tells them that they need to go to Santa Monica because his father is going to help them with the quest. And Grover basically breaks the bad news that, look, we can't get on any sort of public transport because they're being chased down by the cops because they obviously crashed an Amtrak train and then they set the St. Louis Arch on fire. So yeah, and it cuts to the trio just sort of walking down this road. I don't know America very well, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. I'm going based on what the show is saying, and it's just this really nice moment where Percy just can't possibly believe that his father would save him, and I think this is a bit different to the books because in the books, I don't really want to. Don't really want to say this out loud, but in the books, basically, at the end of the first book, where Percy meets his father, he basically tells him, I don't know if he says that he was a mistake or he says something along those lines. And I like that the show is trying to portray like a different version of him, like a different version of Poseidon from the books, because it makes it seem like his father actually really does care about him. And like the way his mom always spoke about his father, she always spoke about him, as being this really kind man that she was drawn to. And I'm so happy that they've done that dynamic in the show, which is a good contrast to the partner that she currently has, which is Gabe, who is Percy's stepfather. Anyway, went on a tangent there. We're not talking about Poseidon, we're talking about Percy. And yeah, they just Grover can hear like an approaching bike in the distance. And I think it's a nice little hint as to say to the audience and people who are non-readers, like, oh look, there's something coming, sort of thing. And they eventually just sit down like behind this wall, and Annabeth is being like really quiet, and like Percy's noticing that she's behaving really strangely. Oh, we love an attentive boyfriend. Yeah, sure. We love that he pays attention. That's not the point. I'm trying to say, sorry, that's the Percabeth in me, the Percabeth shipper in me coming out there. And eventually, um, he just says to her, like, why are you being so weird? Like, and then this guy is still hung up on this hug that she gave him, like, let's say an hour or so ago. And Grover's second-hand embarrassment face when he says that is me when my friend does something stupid. Like, honestly, he's just like, he literally rolls his eyes and is like, oh my God, that is not what she's concerned about. And then she basically tells Percy about the fates and that she saw Asper's cut a piece of thread, and it just basically means that one of them is going to die. Now, Percy, this is like another theme from the book where Percy doesn't really believe in the gods or the fates or basically anything to do with that sort of stuff. He doesn't think much of the warning, and he's never been one who believes in the gods and whatever, so he just sort of dismisses that idea. And then comes a very familiar face. If you're a huge fan of wrestling, like my dad was, like that's the reason why I know who this certain person is. It's Adam Copeland. He's obviously Edge Copeland. And he is Aries. His bike stops and he offers to help the kids. And he basically tells them that the summer solstice is only a few days away. So it's basically just showing like non-readers and audience members that he is obviously a part of their demigod world, you could say. And he introduces himself as his big cousin, right? As their big cousin. And Annabeth sort of clocks on that he's Ares, the god of war. And Ares and Annabeth have a bit of a back and forth relationship in the sense that she's interrogating him, she wants to know why he's so adamant to help them. And he basically just tells her that, oh, Zeus has sent all his children out to look for the Master Bowl. And, he says that if you meet me at the diner, I can offer you some sort of help. And it's so funny because Percy is just like, what kind of family is this? Which is true. Like, the family is such a huge mess and it's so full of different kinds of people. He's just thinking, what the hell, like, have I gotten myself into? Sort of thing. And then we transition onto the diner scene where Ares sort of tells Percy and the others that their quest is going to fail. But Percy is constantly telling him, no, it's not going to fail. Like, I'm not going to let that happen. And yeah, it's just Ares shows him a video of his stepfather, who is Gabe Ugliano. I think I talked about him when I reviewed the first episode, I believe. And he basically just shows him a video where his stepfather is accusing Percy of having something to do with his mom's disappearance. And then that obviously connotes forward to the FBI trying to hunt Percy down, which is the reason why they can't get on any sort of public transport or anything. And how are they supposed to get to LA? They can't walk all the way there. And Percy says, I'm gonna kill him, and Ares is just very much impressed. He goes, yeah, I knew I was gonna like you. You've got that fire inside you. And Percy's kill count, like I tend to forget this because my love for him gets in the way. He was my first fictional crush. Can we just take it easy on like the whole thing? But his kill count is insane. So I'm just like, yeah, he's got this like aggressive sort of like nature to, I'll call it aggressive, but it's more of like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, he jumps into situations head first, is what I'm trying to say, and his emotions very much do cloud his actions, let's say. And honestly, sorry, just going back to Gabe, the guy who plays him, I feel really bad because I don't know his name. I should have Googled it before I did this. I'm so sorry. But he's amazing. And he's one of those characters that you just love to hate. Like, as much of a jackass as he is, like, you just really do love to hate him. And if you've read the books and you know what he's put Percy and his mum through, I think the actor really does bring that out. And it's quite obvious that he's a certified arsehole, which I love. I love that. I love that they didn't change that part of the story because that is significant, I guess. And then Annabeth basically says to him, if you're supposed to be out there looking for the Master Ball, like, why aren't you out there looking for it? And Ares basically tells them, like, look, regardless of whether the Master Ball is found or not, there's going to be a war. Like, there's nothing you guys can do to stop that. And the kids are all confused because they were told by Chiron that if they did return the Master Ball back, there wouldn't be a war. And Percy is just so determined to stop this war. And Ares offers him a quest. He says, if you retrieve my shield from an amusement park up the road, I'll give you a ride to LA and a plan to get into the underworld to invade Hades' palace and get your mom back, basically. And Percy agrees to this, but this is where it gets slightly different from the book. He basically says that he's going to keep Grover there as collateral so they don't run off. Now, that doesn't happen in the books because in the books they all go to the amusement park together, Percy, Grover, and Annabeth. So at first, when I watched the episode, I was a bit like, why has he done that? But now that I've gone back and I've watched it, there is a really good reason why. And I don't. Well, I'm going to actually. Why am I claiming I'm not going to spoil this? I spoil everything when I talk about this sort of stuff. So it's basically so Grover can sort of manipulate Ares, and I'll come back onto that in a moment when I get to their own scene after Percy and Annabeth have gone to get the shield. And Grover is really calm about the situation, which is odd because Percy and Annabeth are like, "Oh my God, no, we don't want to leave you behind. Like, we're not splitting up again." And he said, "No, no, no, like it's okay." And he tells them to go and get the shield, and that he'll be waiting for them when they get back. Um, and I think the reason why they've done this is because when they were adapting the book, especially because it's a TV show and they're trying to create like a live action romance relationship, they have to give Percy and Annabeth that time. Like they have to be alone at times, I guess, for the relationship to be able to develop. So I think that's the reason why they've done it. I'm not sure about that. That's just my own interpretation of why I think they've done what they did. But yeah, I do like that change actually because then it gives Grover more time to sort out the issue, which is working out who the lightning thief is, while Percy and Annabeth go to get Ares' shield. And then it moves on to the Waterland sequence. Now, this is where I was really excited because I've read these books a few times and I wanted to see what they were going to do with this whole Waterland concept. And yeah, it's basically an abandoned amusement park. If you haven't seen it, it's great. You should watch it. And Percy finds out that Annabeth has never seen a movie before. And he just immediately asks her out. He's like, oh, we've really got to change that. I gotta say, Percy, my guy, has unlimited riz. Like, he is one character that has, like, literally the benchmark of riz. I swear. It's so good. It's so good. Anyway, and then obviously Percy gets ahead of himself and he gets trapped in the gate, and it's basically up to Annabeth to try and save him. She explains to him that the amusement park was built by Hephaestus, and if you don't know who Hephaestus is in Greek mythology, he's the Greek god of craftsmen. And Annabeth, to sort of stop Percy from worrying because he's really like distressed at this point, she tries to tell him a joke, and he doesn't find it very funny. And I swear they're just so cute. Like their entire relationship is just adorable. Like honestly, as I was like watching it, I was like, this ship is literally going to be the end of me. Like I'm like this now. I always wonder, like in seasons to come, in years to come, what I'm going to be like. Because as much as I hate to admit it, like I'm an adult now, and I'm so invested in their relationship that I just like I can't even blame like the inner teenager in me because I'm not a teenager anymore. So yeah, they're just so unbelievably cute. Anyway, let's move on. And then Annabeth tells him to push through the door, but he hesitates. He's like, "Oh, I thought you said that the fate said that one of us is gonna die, so we should be a bit more careful." And she still encourages him. She goes, just do it. And he does it. And I think that's because he trusts her. Like after everything that happened between him and Medusa and everything, I think she's proven to him that she's trustworthy, and eventually he pushes through it. And it reminded me of something that's in the books, which obviously if you haven't read the books, you're not going to know. But there's this really key idea. Like Rick is constantly reminding us when you read the books that Percy doesn't really believe in the gods. The only thing that he does believe in is Annabeth, and if Annabeth like tells him to do something, he'll do it. And I think it's they really nicely, like in a really subtle way, bring that dynamic. But I was thinking about that as I was watching it, and I was like, yeah, I could see how good they are at putting stuff in from the books, and I'm so happy that Rick is one of the writers on the show. Like, I think that's where the movies went wrong. I mean, let's not bring up the movies; they make me incredibly upset. But I just, yeah, that's one thing I really like. Is the Tunnel of Love sequence even in the movie? I don't know. I haven't seen them in years. Like I told you, I was so disappointed the first time I ever watched it. I never watched it again. So yeah, I don't know if that sequence is in there or not. I think I keep having to tell myself like maybe after I've done this all the episodes, maybe I should go back and watch the movies. I know I'm going to be disappointed, but like I just want to see like where they went wrong. Is that exactly? And honestly, the set for the amusement park was beautiful. I don't know if that was the volume stage or if they built that set, but it is so much better than what I had imagined from the books. It's very like the attention to detail in this show is just stunning. And then it moves on to, oh, this is the bit I'm really excited about talking about, is the Grover and Ares conversation. So Grover basically tells him that they've met before at the solstice on Olympus, the winter solstice, um, the day that the lightning bolt was stolen. Lightning bolt? Master bolt. Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean. And he tells him that he's actually a fan of Ares. And this is weird because Ares is thinking, oh my God, like he's a satyr, like he's a child of nature. Why would he be a fan of the god of war? And, Grover just basically says to him, like, he's a big fan of, his minimal battles where nothing really happened. And I could see what he was doing. He was basically trying to butter him up or smother him into getting information out of him. And Grover is just absolutely amazing at manipulation. And he knows that flattering the god of war is the only way to get him to talk. And just on a little side note, just something I was thinking about was how adorable Aryan looks in the scene. Like he just brings such a softness to Grover that it's exactly like I had imagined it out of the books. Like Grover to have that really meek and calm and gentle and sweet personality, which I really like. And Aryan brings that perfectly to the screen. And I'm so happy that they've given Grover additional screen time because he is so important in the Riordan verse, and he's more than just Percy's best friend. He's helped him through so many things, and I'm so happy that in the show they're showing more of his character. Um, yeah, I really appreciate that about the show. Sorry, went on a tangent there talking about Grover, but yeah, so he's basically flattering Ares because I think he's sort of clocked on that he knows who the lightning thief is. He's just not saying anything. Now, this is my favorite scene ever from the show. It's the Tunnel of Love. Oh my God, I was so excited when I saw this. I was like, this is just amazing. Right, I'm going to start a little bit before the Tunnel of Love sequence, actually. So Annabeth is walking around the park with Percy, and she's just in awe, of like the architecture that's gone behind building the amusement park. And obviously, if you've read the books, you know that she's a huge architecture lover, and I'm happy that they've put that they subtly drop it in. They don't necessarily get her to talk a lot about it, but they subtly drop it in, which I like. And then Percy is just kind of questioning why Ares was in the park in the first place. He knows that the Ares and Hephaestus are actually enemies. And Annabeth sort of says, oh, if I had to take a guess, Aphrodite. And, Percy realizes that Ares was there because of Aphrodite. And if you don't know who Aphrodite is, she's the goddess of love. And she's actually Hephaestus's wife. But she's been having a fling with the god of war. Just don't ask. Greek mythology is just full of affairs. And yeah, it just gets really confusing. I mean, do you know what? The look on Percy's face, like Walker's acting, he looks just absolutely disturbed by the fact that she was cheating on her husband in his amusement park. Like the whole situation's just hilarious. And it's a bit of adult humor in there as well for the adults watching. I really liked that. And my sister obviously didn't get it when I was watching it, and she just couldn't comprehend why I was laughing. But yeah, and then I think like it's just a nice by talking about the gods like that, it's a nice juxtaposition because Percy isn't like them, like his Greek relatives. He's somebody who is incredibly loyal. So even if he was with someone, he wouldn't even think about somebody else, which I think is so nice. And I think that's probably one of the things like I love and adore about him as a character. And I'm so happy that Rick has created this amazing fictional man who has raised my standards out into the roof. But yeah, we're not going to talk about that. That's just, yeah. And then Annabeth basically quotes Aries and she's like, he was right about one thing, this family is a big mess. And then there's a little like, I guess you could hear like machinery, and it's like it's the ride's called Thrill Ride of Love, and it's just so funny. And Percy and Annabeth are like looking at each other like, okay, this is not weird at all. And yeah, they get into the boat and they're on this beautiful volume stage, and the song What Is Love starts playing, and when I tell you I burst out laughing. That song is so funny because it's so fitting for Hephaestus' story. It was such a good pick. Whoever's idea that was really funny. But I just love that Percy and Annabeth are like constantly looking at each other and they're just both so confused, like they just can't physically comprehend what's happening. And yeah, I just thought it was hilarious. And actually, I learned from an interview that Walker said that that was actually the volume stage, and it was stunning. I mean, it was filled with different colored lights. There were like the entire of Hephaestus' story was sort of like acted out, which I thought was great. It was absolutely breathtaking. Whoever came up with that idea is honestly a genius. Like, it was even better than the scene from the books, I believe. At least that's just my opinion, anyway. And then Percy sort of tells Annabeth that his mum disapproves of the kind of family that the gods are. But he hesitates before he says it. And I think this is because he knows how Annabeth feels about the gods. And I feel like he's just one of those people that doesn't want to offend her. And, he keeps saying, like, he felt like his mum was purposely trying to keep him away from this world, which she was. But I don't think it's for the reason that he thinks it is. And he says that, like, she just didn't prepare me enough. And Annabeth immediately disagrees with him, she's like, no, like, maybe she just wanted you to be better. Maybe that's why she was telling you all these stories so that you would be different. And she's also a Sally Jackson stan. I'm a Sally Jackson stan. I think that woman is absolutely incredible. She's an amazing mother. I would die to have a mom like that. And, I really hope that the Sally and Annabeth dynamic gets explored more in future seasons. I hope that they get more scenes together because I think they'd make a really good duo. And Virginia is just amazing. I love her. I think she's great. And then they basically the ride sort of comes to an end and they're sort of falling down, and Percy tells Annabeth to jump off the boat and he saves her from drowning using his water ability, which obviously he doesn't really have much control over now. Like, he doesn't have much control over his powers yet, but I really hope that they explore that more in future seasons. I think it will be really good. And then the next scene that I'm going to talk about is the golden chair scene. Um, the set was just stunning, by the way. It was a massive tank just full of water, and it had a lovely gold statue and a chair, and there was like Greek stories painted on the background that I noticed. I didn't really recognize any of them, but I did know that they were probably stories. Yeah, the set designers of this show are so good. I know that was a proper set and not the volume stage. I watched the documentary, so I know that that was a proper set. Yeah, the set designers for the show, honestly, they're so good, so good. And then it comes back to Grover and Aries, where Aries tells Grover that he hates his own kids, which I guess this is. I'm hoping this is a thread that they pull later on. But Clarice is always trying to win her dad's support. Um, if anybody doesn't know, Clarice was the Camp Half Blood bully for Percy, and she's always trying to win his approval. And I think that it's so ironic that he says that he hates all of his kids. I think that makes me really sad. I can't possibly imagine how she must feel. But anyway, it's not about Clarice. And he says that he hates the winter solstice is because all the demigods come to meet their parents, and it means that he has to interact with his children, even though he doesn't really care about them. And then Grover basically points out that the last solstice was so memorable because the Master Bolt was stolen. And I could see what he was trying to do. Like, Grover is such an underrated character, and I'm glad that the show has put more emphasis on him. And he was basically just trying to say, like, imply that he knew that Ares was in on this, the lightning bolt being stolen. He was basically trying to manipulate him into telling him who stole the Master Bolt, because I think he's almost certain that Ares knows who the lightning thief is, just she's just covering for them. Now, the next Percabeth scene, oh my god. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did shed a couple of tears this episode, not ashamed to admit it. I love them. And Walker and Leah's portrayal of these two characters, I literally, like, my heart literally swells up with pride when I see that relationship. I'm just like, yeah, that is exactly how I imagined it. So they come back to the Hephaestus's chair, and Percy tells Annabeth the story of Hera being trapped in the chair by Hephaestus. Now, from what I can remember, Hera is Zeus's wife, although he's had multiple affairs. But like I said, Greek mythology is really messy. And Percy realizes that the chair is actually the bargain. So in order for one of them to get the shield, the other has to sit in the chair. And literally, Annabeth, like without even hesitation, she said, "I'll do it." And he literally pulls her back. He stops her, and again, it's showing his fatal flaw that he would do anything to save a friend, and he wouldn't let his friend sacrifice themselves for him. And I don't know, it just makes me love him even more. I'm just like, wow, that is a true friend right there. Somebody who would sacrifice themselves for you but would never expect the same in return. And I think that pretty much sums up Percy in a nutshell, I guess. And then Percy sort of tells Annabeth why he chose her for the quest. So the first time he sort of says to her that he chose her because he couldn't imagine that they would be friends. But this time he said that the reason why he chose her is because he knew that she wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice him if the quest required it. Although I think that's completely changed now. Now that they're actually friends, I think Percy's hoping she won't hesitate, but I know for a fact that she would because she cares about him, obviously. And he basically tells her, like, there's no other way for this quest to succeed if he doesn't sacrifice himself. And Walker's acting, as somebody who loves acting so much, is gorgeous in that scene. Like, you can really see that vulnerability and that selflessness through the screen. And his eye acting, like in particular, like he conveys so much from his eyes, and there's not a lot of actors that can do that. And I really admire that about him. He's a really talented kid. And oh my god, I'm saying kid as if he's like really very much younger than me. He's what, 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years younger than I am. But yeah, I really appreciate his acting. And one thing that really stood out to me about this scene is he gives Annabeth Riptide, and I know for a fact that there is nobody else in his world that he would give that to or entrust to rather than Annabeth. And Percabeth is happening, guys. And I literally, when he pulled Riptide out, I choked up. I was like, oh my god, this guy is just insane. I swear, these two are like my Roman Empire. Not even my Roman Empire, they're my Greek Empire. I just love them so much. And they are exactly how I pictured Percy and Annabeth to be. And he says to her, like, I need you to promise me something. And she promises that she wouldn't leave the underworld without his mum. And he says, like, after you've done with the quest and everything, could you come back and help me? And she says that you don't even have to ask. And it's just like, you can tell, like, she definitely fell for him first. Like, I know everybody's saying, like, the way he looks at her and stuff, but the way you can just see it, like, she's head over heels for him already, and she doesn't even know it. It's so sweet. And Leah, actually, in that scene, I noticed she had tears in her eyes, and I could actually feel like she felt like she was going to lose him in the screen, and yeah, it made like the tears fall, and I was like, oh my god, this is insane. I sound like such a big baby. Like, I'm talking about this as if they're like real life people, but for me, they're really special because obviously this book series is so special to me. So I'm just like, wow. Yeah. Anyway, so Percy eventually sits in the chair, and Annabeth begs him to stand up, but he just can't, and he turns into a statue. But while he's like transitioning, he keeps reassuring her that he's okay. He keeps saying, I'm okay, I'm okay. And it's almost like he's trying to convince himself as well so she doesn't worry, but you can see like he's fully distraught about the whole thing. And eventually the shield falls down to the side of the chair. But what made me laugh about the scene was she just completely like bypasses the shield, like she doesn't even care anymore, and she moves to like behind the machine to try and free him. And it's such a big thing because at one point, Annabeth's character, if she didn't care about him, would have just taken the shield and left. But it just shows that he's changing her, and I really like that. I like that. I love the whole slow burn thing. Like it just there's something so special about a slow burn, and I think Percy and Annabeth are probably the best slow burn of all time. They're the greatest love story of all time. I'll fight anybody on it. Like I'm just like there is nobody that can read their story and be like, oh, that's cringy or that's even me. Like I'm such an unromantic person. You probably couldn't tell from the fact that I'm so invested in this relationship, but I just there's something different about them. Like I've never cringed reading any of their stuff. Like I just it's so wholesome. Like there's just no possible way that anybody can cringe. Anyway, let's move on. So this is the scene where Annabeth meets Hephaestus, and he basically says to her, can I help you? And she says that she's not leaving without Percy, and Percy has changed her in the sense that he's made her a lot more selfless. And honestly, like I can't unless you've read the books and now you're watching the show. I don't think anybody can possibly comprehend what I feel when I see them together. Like she's changing for the better because of him, and I like that. Like I love that. And she keeps saying she isn't leaving without him, and it's such a big thing. Like there was a point in time where she would have pushed anybody out the way to be at the top, but now she's like, no, I can't leave without him. I'm not leaving without my friend, and it's so sweet. And then Hephaestus basically tells her that he knows that Athena was annoyed with her, and she was really pissed off at her, basically. And he tells her, you walk out with that shield, your mother will be so proud and she'll forgive you. But then Annabeth keeps looking at Percy and she's just like, no, like, that's not right. And she says, like, Percy is so much better than the gods. Like, he's not power driven. And he's so much better than that. She literally says that, like, he's better than that. And it's so weird how much Percy has changed her. Like, from when he met her for the first time in episode 2, when they had a proper interaction, and to what she is now. Like, it's the most incredible art, honestly. And I did shed a couple of tears when she was talking about him like that. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Leah honestly just killed that scene, and like it she made me cry because I was just like, oh my God, wow, she really does care about him. And eventually Hephaestus can see the love in her eyes for Percy, and he just sets him free. He's also a low-key shipper, guys. I genuinely think he ships them together. I'm sorry, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true, but yeah. And you know what I really like is as soon as like Percy stands up, he launches himself towards her, and she grabs onto his arm. And that's something she does in the book. Like she holds his hand or she grabs onto his arm in the book when she's feeling scared or when she's feeling vulnerable. And the whole time she's just staring at him like she just can't believe that he's back. And Hephaestus says that he'll put in a good word with Athena for her, which is such a big thing. Like he'll even though that I don't think that will go down very well. Like if he tells her Athena that her daughter is like got a thing for Poseidon's son, I don't think she's gonna approve of that necessarily. But okay, whatever. Now Percy and Annabeth head back to the diner with Ares' shield, and honestly, Grover looks so proud of them. Like he's just like beaming. And then Ares gives Percy a backpack along with the ride to take them to Los Angeles, which is basically an animal trafficking, what would you call it, lorry, van, don't know, whatever you want to call it. And he keeps telling him that, the quest is going to fail, but Percy's just like, no, we're not going to fail. Like, I'm not going to let that happen. And then Grover is sort of intervenes and stops Percy from arguing with Ares and tells him that they need to go. And the episode comes to an end with Grover saying that, I know who the lightning thief is. I know who stole the Master Bolt. And then the screen goes blank, and that's the end of the episode. But yeah, overall, it was a really good episode. There were so many things in there that I loved. It's a very Percabeth episode, which I was very much happy with. I was like, yes. It's very fast paced, like it moves really fast. So you have to be like on the ball and paying attention. But I like that about a TV show. Like, sometimes when a TV show takes forever to get to the point, you sort of lose interest. You definitely can't do that with this show. Like things are constantly happening, which is good. Honestly, Adam Copeland as Ares, like I couldn't pick a better casting for Ares. Like he was terrifying. He's got that bad boy vibe. He's also got that asshole attitude, which is great, which I don't think he's like in real life. But yeah, it was great to see him as Ares, and he was terrifying. Like when he first did his introduction, I was a bit like, whoa. And also Timothy Son, is that how you say his name? I don't know. The guy who plays Hephaestus, he was also incredible as Hephaestus. He was a really good pick. Yeah, Disney just have this way of finding the best actors for the job, I guess. And I like that they, particularly in this episode, they talked more about different Greek stories. Now, I don't think those are the same as actual Greek mythology. I think they're sort of Uncle Rick's take on the stories. But yeah, they actually had. I'm glad that they weren't just shoved in there. They actually had meaning for the episode, and they actually helped carry the episode, which I really appreciate. Obviously, if I was going to talk about my favorite scene, it would be Tunnel of Love. Like that scene is so much better than it was in the books. And, I know it doesn't really lean into Annabeth's arachnophobia or anything, like they don't touch that thread. But it was good because it was more of Percy and Annabeth and just giving their relationship a whole other level. And, instead of them being there just for a show for the gods, just as a distraction so Ares can waste their time, they actually had a purpose, which was going to get his shield, which I thought was really cool. And also, I'm glad that there was more Grover in this episode because obviously he's such an important part of the Riordan verse as well. Like he deserves just as much as any character to be in there. So I'm glad that they've put that in as well. The whole Waterland set, the volume stage, everything was so beautiful in this episode. Everything was so well shot, and I think it's directed by Jet Wilkinson, from what I can believe, from what I can remember. But yeah, I think she did a great job directing the show. It was really good. Um, yeah, so that's kind of all like my sort of thoughts on this episode. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's my favorite episode so far that I've rewatched. I'm glad that there were a lot more changes from the book, but I'm sort of okay with that actually. Like the changes had a purpose, like they weren't just in there for no reason, which is what I respect. Um, yeah, so that takes me towards the end of my review. So thank you so much for listening in. Um, I really hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. I'm so sorry that the noise quality was awful. It's because I filmed it in my hotel room. Yeah, like I said, I'm sorry that the sound quality was so bad. It didn't sound too bad, like in the hotel room, but like when I was editing it and listening to it back, I was like, crap. But I also didn't want to re-record it because sometimes I can't remember the things that I've said, and I don't want to sound like a robot. Like I like to do this in one take, so I'm just yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I went to London for 4 days for a course, and yeah, it was really scary. Think it's because like it's the first time I'd ever been anywhere by myself. Like I'd never stayed in a hotel by myself. I'd never traveled by myself. And I think for me it was an even bigger deal because I'm somebody with anxiety. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but like so what seems trivial to other people isn't necessarily trivial to me. Like I have like quite high functioning anxiety. So when I was going on this trip, the reason why I wanted to go by myself is because I wanted to prove myself that I could do it, and I didn't want my anxiety to stop me from doing something that I really wanted to do. And yeah, I'm really proud of myself because I did manage to do it. And you know, I don't think like people who don't have anxiety obviously don't understand like what it means to be held back. And do you know that anxiety gives you such a bad doubt? I'm sorry, this is going on a complete tangent compared to what I was just talking about. But it makes you wash away in a tidal wave of self-doubt because the anxiety is telling you you can't do it. It sort of goes in your brain that you can't do it, and eventually you don't do it. And like for me, I've missed out on so many opportunities just because of my anxiety, which is why like I decided that I wanted to go into counseling. Like I wanted to try it to see if I could control my anxiety. And you know what? Since I did like therapy, I did CBT, so I did cognitive behavioral therapy. Since I did that, like I've been a lot better with my anxiety. Like I was talking to my dad about it and I said, I haven't had an anxiety attack in a really long time. I used to get panic attacks and things, but I don't get any of that anymore. I'm so happy. And it's all down to I had a lovely therapist called Charlotte. She was amazing. And she really did help me reconstruct my mind and make it easy for myself. So I'm forever grateful to her, for everything. And yeah, sorry, that went on a tangent. I went from talking about Percy Jackson to talking about my mental health. But I just wanted to like put this out there, like, the Percy Jackson books when I was young, it was nice to have them on a bad day because it was a way of comforting myself. And, Percy is somebody who struggles with ADHD and things, so it was nice that there was a hero out there that had difficulties, I guess. And when I heard Rick in the New York panel say that he wrote this because his son was feeling out of place in the world, I know that this book series is made out of pure love, which I think is why it resonates with so many people. And like I can't wait like until my sister's a little bit older and when I have my own kids to give them Percy Jackson because it's something that really changed me and it gave me a love for fantasy that I can't possibly explain. I keep trying to get my friend to read it. Like I'm just like, you just need to read it. She's like, I was like, it's not a children's book. Like I can tell you that. Like even though like it was written for that age range, I don't think it's a children's book. I think it's actually so much more than that. And she's like, yeah, sure, I'm gonna give it a go. So I can't wait to see what she thinks of it. But yeah, these books are so special to me for that reason in particular. And I'm so happy that Rick got a chance to turn this into a series. Like, I can't tell you how much that means to me. And as disappointed as I was with the movies, like, I'm so happy that he's been given another chance, I guess, to make it his own and be a writer on the show and approve of everything. And these first 5 episodes have been amazing, and every change has been worth it, I believe. Um, and yeah, I just, I was talking about my love for acting, but this is one show like that I watched and I was like, you know what? I would really love to be part of that universe. I haven't taken it up seriously. I haven't taken acting up seriously. Um, but it is something like when I watched it, I was like, oh, it'd be nice to be part of like something like this, I guess. I don't know. Don't think I would be good enough for it though, but yeah, yeah, just love the show, love the series, love the books. I was actually just looking online and I was like, I want because the books that I bought when I was rereading this didn't have the original covers, they had the new covers on them and they were all paperback. So what I was thinking was I could treat myself to the hardback covers with the original like covers that I remember when I first read the books. I'm not sure about it yet. I'll let you guys know in the next episode if I purchase them or not. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for listening in. I'm sorry these episodes are so long. I tend to ramble a lot, and I'm really sorry about that. But this episode, I had so much to talk about, and I was really excited. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening in. Tune in next week where I'm reviewing the 6th episode. I've got 2 episodes till the end. And yeah, I'm really excited. Actually, next episode I get to talk about the Lotus Casino, so I'm really excited about that. There's some interesting names that were thrown around that Percy Jackson readers will love, so I can't wait to share that with you guys. But then, thank you so much again. Thank you for being so patient with me as well. I haven't really kind of got this whole being on time thing down yet for podcasts, but I will. I will do it. I promise I'll get better. And yeah, follow me on Instagram at Aamsuntitledpodcast. I did a little bit of a logo change as well, if anybody noticed. I didn't have a logo with my face before, but it's not got my face on it. You can only see my hair and my back. But I had my Percy Jackson sweatshirt and my Annabeth Chase necklace on. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, follow me on Instagram. Email me at amsuntitledpodcast@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer any sort of questions, any content recommendations as well. I'd really appreciate it. Like I've just been thinking about like once I've done all the books and the show, like what I'm gonna do next, like what series I want to move on to next. Because obviously this isn't just a Percy Jackson podcast; it's a general podcast. So I've been thinking about that a lot. And I didn't know if I wanted to go back to Heroes of Olympus. Maybe I might do that. I don't know. I'm not sure yet, but I will figure it out and let you guys know. So then again, thank you so much for listening in. I really appreciate it. And I will hopefully speak to you all next week. Bye. Love you guys. Big hug to anybody that needs it.